Hello, my dear friends. Today, we're stepping into a story that even Alex himself never imagined. The person trying to hurt him isn't some rival at the company, but someone close. Someone who walked into his home every day with the sweetest smile. Last night, Mrs. Min Alex's mother exposed Mai with just a single text message. But the moment the door closed, everything that looked finished was actually the beginning of a nightmare. Because in the dark, another mother, Mai's mother, decided to protect her daughter with a chilling phone call. And by the next morning, Mrs. Min nearly lost her life in a perfectly staged accident. The question is, who is really behind all of this? And the next target? Could it be Tuna and little Henry, the two people Alex loves most? Don't take your eyes off this story. You won't believe what happens next. That night, Mai came to the house, as usual, carrying a basket of fruit and wearing a sweet, innocent smile. But Mrs. Min no longer smiled back. Her eyes were deeper, and there was a chilling clarity in her gaze. She placed the teacup on the table, looked Mai straight in the eye, and spoke slowly, but with an icy sharpness. "Why did you do this?" Mai froze. Her eyes widened in shock for a moment. Then she tried to force a shaky smile. I don't understand what you mean, Auntie." Mrs. Min didn't say another word. She held up her phone in front of Mai. A text message appeared. Mai's smile vanished like a candle blown out by the wind. Her face went pale. Her breath became shallow. Mrs. Min remained calm, but her hands tightened into fists. "I've treated you like a daughter. Why did you use my trust to get close to Alex? Why did you do this when you knew he already had someone he loves?" Mai bit her lip until it bled. In her eyes, pain, shame, but also a flicker of sharp, cold hatred. She choked on her words. "You don't understand. I'm just taking back what should have been mine." The words, "should have been," froze the air. It was so cold even the wind outside seemed to stop. Mrs. Min stood up. Her voice was firm without any hesitation. From now on, don't come here, and stay out of Alex's business. You're making a huge mistake, Mai." Mai gripped her purse so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her shoulders trembled slightly. And as she turned to leave, her gaze was sharper, darker, like a cut through the air. Something inside Mai just broke. What Mrs. Min didn't know was that when she said that she had stepped into dangerous territory she never expected, that night, Mai arrived home in chaos, but the one who lost control even more was her mother, Mrs. Hugh. Years ago, Mrs. Hugh and Mrs. Min were so close that everyone used to say they're like sisters. But when Mai told her everything with all the bitterness and resentment about how Mrs. Min had kicked her out, insulted her, stolen what was rightfully hers, Mrs. Hugh's face turned bright red, her eyes burning with fury. That rage was blinding. It was the rage of a mother who placed her child above everything, even right or wrong. She dares to kick you out. She dares to stop you from being with Alex. Who does she think she is? Mai lowered her head, crying uncontrollably. Her tears, half real, half for leverage, pierced into Mrs. Hugh's heart like a knife. Mrs. Hugh slammed her hand down on the table, the sound loud and sharp. "No one is allowed to hurt my daughter. No one." And then, as if her rational mind had left her, Mrs. Hugh picked up the phone. Her voice was low, sharp, and cold, enough to make Mai shiver slightly. I need to take care of someone. The sooner the better. The voice on the other end asked for a name. Without hesitation, Mrs. Hugh said, "Min." Alex's mother, a peaceful life, was now being measured by ruthless standards set by an old friend. Meanwhile, at home, Mrs. Min sat in a wooden chair by the window. She finished the last sip of the cold, weak tea that had been sitting for who knows how long. Her mind was a little lighter now that she had said what she needed to but it also felt heavy from losing a child she had once cared for like her own. The night wind blew through the porch, the sound of leaves rustling. A fragile peace surrounded the house. But she didn't know. Outside the alley, a motorcycle stopped for a few seconds, the rider watching the house as if studying someone's routine. Then it backed into the darkness. In the distance, a figure disappeared behind the trees, silently observing. In the corner of the city, Mrs. Hugh sat in a dark room, her eyes red from resentment. For my daughter, I can trade everything, even friendship, even my conscience. If only Mrs. Min opened the door 1 second later. If only she went to water the plants alone at night. If only one night the road was empty. Mrs. Min, the kind woman who only knew how to love, would face a danger she couldn't even imagine. And Alex, along with LYTUNA, had no idea that the real enemy wasn't just targeting the company, but was about to drive a knife into the heart of the woman Alex loved most in the world. That morning, the sky was still covered with a thin layer of mist, and the air was cool, almost as if it was signaling a peaceful day ahead. Mrs. Min put on her light sweater, grabbed her familiar basket, and locked the gate before heading out. Going to the market in the morning was her favorite routine. No noise, no pushing or shoving, just the soft sounds of the market opening and the fresh scent of vegetables, which made her feel that life still had something simple and peaceful to offer. She walked slowly down the narrow alley, her slippers lightly tapping against the damp ground, the sound of her footsteps steady. The neighbors greeted her with their familiar smiles. Going to the market so early, Aunt Min. Yes, I'm going to buy some meat to cook a stew for Alex. Mentioning her son, the corner of her mouth lifted slightly. Despite the storms brewing at Alex's company, she tried to keep this small peace in her heart as a silent prayer for him, but little did she know. Not far away, a black motorcycle had quietly followed her since she left home. The rider wore a black jacket, a hood covering his head, his face nearly hidden. He stopped at the entrance of the market and pretended to make a phone call. I've been following her. She's walking. Just a quick turn, and it's done. Mrs. Min entered the market. The stalls were still opening. The sound of knives chopping, people calling out, and the scales ringing filled the air, blending into a familiar soundscape. She stood at the first vegetable stall, choosing some water spinach, then picking up a few zucchinis and carrots. Her face softened, and the worries about Mai from yesterday slowly faded. The breeze blew, carrying the fresh scent of newly cut vegetables. She turned toward the butcher stall about 10 steps away. She just had to cross a small road where cars occasionally passed by. A very ordinary thing. Very familiar. Very safe. Or it should have been safe. Just as Mrs. Min stepped onto the curb to cross the street, suddenly, bang! The shrill screech of a motorcycle engine tore through the market space. The black motorcycle sped toward her with terrifying speed. No horn, no slowing down, like a dark arrow, heading straight for Mrs. Min. The vendors screamed in panic. Aunt Min, be careful! Move the motorcycle! Mrs. Min turned her head in fear. She barely caught a glimpse of a dark figure and cold eyes behind the black helmet. Her legs went weak. The shopping bag slipped from her hands. She froze, no time to run, no time to scream. In that moment, time seemed to slow down. All the sounds faded, leaving only the frantic beating of her heart. Just as the black motorcycle was about to crash into her barely an arm's length away, then, screech. A three-wheeled cart loaded with vegetables suddenly came from the left, blocking the road. The motorcycle rider jerked the handlebars to avoid the cart. The black motorcycle slid past Mrs. Min, grazing her sleeve just enough for her to feel the cold wind rush by. People rushed over. "Aunt Min, are you okay?" "Goodness, it almost hit you." Mrs. Min's knees gave way, and she had to grab a plastic chair nearby to steady herself. Her hands were trembling uncontrollably. Her chest tightened from fear. Her breath was shallow, uneven. I'm okay," she whispered, but her voice was shaky like the wind. Her forehead was damp with sweat. The bundle of vegetables she had dropped lay crushed on the ground. Everyone thought the motorcycle rider would stop. But he didn't. He turned to look at Mrs. Min, a long, cold, piercing gaze. It wasn't a careless look. It wasn't a look of someone just driving recklessly. It was the look of a hunter who had just missed his prey. Mrs. Min shuddered. A cold chill ran down her spine. She couldn't explain why, but that look made her feel like death had just brushed past her. He revved the engine and sped off, disappearing into the crowd, leaving behind an eerie silence. Behind a sunshade, another man wearing a hood had been watching everything. He picked up the phone. "I missed." Someone blocked the way. A woman's voice on the other end, soft but cold as ice. "Don't fail again. She can't suspect anything. Make it look like an accident." The man nodded, his eyes dangerous. "Understood." He walked off, blending into the crowd. Mrs. Min picked up her things, her hands still shaking. A few people helped her sit at a nearby stall. She tried to smile and thank them, but her heart was still racing, the unease creeping into her veins. A thought flickered in her mind, small but chilling. Could this not be a coincidence? She shook her head, trying to reassure herself. It must have been reckless driving. But deep inside, she knew that feeling wasn't about careless driving. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a mistake. It was the feeling of being targeted. The mastermind was waiting, watching, preparing for the next time, a time when there would be no miraculous escape. And Mrs. Min still had no idea that death had already touched her once, and it would come again. Alex had just returned home from work, his clothes still carrying the smell of the street wind. He was about to sit down and give his mother a reassuring smile, but Mrs. Min didn't smile back. She sat still in front of him, her hands clasped together, fingers trembling slightly. There was something very different in her eyes. Alex furrowed his brows. "Mom, what's wrong? Did something happen?" Mrs. Min stared at her son for a long time, as though trying to find the right way to speak without making him worry. But the fear inside her was too great to hide. She took a deep breath and began, slowly, clearly, piece by piece. "This morning, I almost got hit by a car at the market." The clinking of dishes stopped abruptly. Alex stared at her, stunned. "What, are you okay?" "Who did it? Did they apologize?" Mrs. Min shook her head. Her face went pale. "Alex, that car didn't just drive recklessly. It came straight at me, straight If the three-wheeled cart hadn't blocked it, Her voice caught, unable to say the word dead. Alex sat frozen. Before he could ask more, Mrs. Minh said something that tore the silence apart. "I think this has something to do with my..." The small kitchen suddenly went eerily quiet. The chopsticks in Alex's hands fell onto the table with a sharp clink. He muttered, "My..." Mrs. Minh nodded, her eyes filled with pain. "I don't want to suspect her, but I can't find any other explanation. It wasn't a coincidence, Alex. I felt the look of that person. It was too deliberate." Alex's hands clenched until they turned white. A mix of anger, fear, and confusion twisted inside him, making his heart pound. Then, as if someone had squeezed his chest, a thought flashed through his mind, and he stood up suddenly. LYTUNA and Henry. He turned toward the door, his face now as pale as a sheet. Mrs. Minh startled Alex. "What's wrong?" Alex turned back, his voice hoarse but clear. "Mom, if my or anyone behind her is bold enough to target you, then they could come after LYTUNA and her son too. They're at the farm. It's remote. Very easy for someone to do something bad there." The fear spread through Alex's eyes, the fear of someone who just realized that the two people he loved most in the world were in danger. Mrs. Minh jumped up after him. "Alex, are you serious?" "Oh my God." Alex grabbed his coat and rushed out the door, but not before turning back to put a hand on his mother's shoulder. "Stay home. Lock the doors. Don't go out alone. I'll be back soon." Mrs. Minh grabbed his hand, her voice shaking. "Alex, be careful. I don't want you to get hurt." Alex looked at her, his eyes deep and filled with worry. "I'm worried about her and her son. I can't sit still. What happened this morning wasn't random, and I won't let that happen to anyone else." He turned and rushed out. His footsteps echoed in the yard. The door closed behind him, leaving Mrs. Minh standing in the kitchen, her hands trembling. The yellow light cast over her eyes, which were glistening with unshed tears. She whispered, as if sending her words with the wind, to those things she couldn't say out loud, "Please God, don't let my son face anything worse." Outside, Alex started the motorcycle. The engine roared like his heart, urging him forward. He sped off into the night, a feeling of tightness in his chest, as though someone were choking him. "LYTUNA, Henry, please don't let anything happen." Because Alex knew well, if the dark hand had already reached his mother, then LYTUNA and her son were definitely in the crosshairs. The night wind hit his face like cold blades. Alex sped down the dark road leading up the hill, his heart pounding louder than the sound of the engine. The sky hung heavy with a dull gray, the clouds so low they seemed ready to swallow the weak light from his headlights. In his mind, the image of his mother almost being hit by a car replayed over and over. A cold, calculating look. An intentional swerve. And then the burning question in his mind. If they don't stop, who will be their next target? Thinking of LYTUNA and Henry at the empty farm, Alex's heart clenched. The wind howled in his ears, carrying the feeling of someone racing against the dark, running to protect the most important thing in his life. "Please don't let anything happen," Alex whispered, his voice filled with worry. When the motorcycle turned onto the dirt road leading to the farm, fog enveloped both sides, and only the bike's headlights cut a small path ahead. And right then, he saw something that sent a chill through him. The wooden gate in front of the yard was slightly open. It looked as if someone had just left, or was waiting for someone to arrive. Alex turned off the engine, his palms cold and sweaty. He gently pushed the gate, the creaking hinges sounding like a warning. "Tuna," he called softly, his voice caught in his throat. No response, only the wind and the sound of leaves brushing together. He quickened his pace, his heart racing. Any small noise made him clench his fists. Pushing the door open, Alex found Tuna in the kitchen, the warm yellow light casting over her face. She turned around, her eyes widening when she saw him. Alex. Oh my God. "What are you doing here at this hour?" He didn't answer, just stepped forward and pulled her into a tight embrace. The trembling in his arms made Tuna freeze for a moment before she wrapped her arms around his back, whispering, "What's going on?" "You're scaring me." Alex placed both hands on her shoulders, looking straight into her concerned eyes. "My mom almost got hit. It wasn't an accident. It was on purpose." Tuna's face went pale. That invisible knife seemed to cut through her heart. "So, is she okay?" "She's fine, but I don't believe they'll stop. And I can't leave you and Henry here alone." Tuna's hand trembled as she held onto Alex's, as if searching for safety. "Do you think they'll come after me?" Alex gripped her hand tighter, his voice low and hoarse. "If they'd go after my mom, they're bold enough to do anything." Their breathing synced heavy, like the night itself pressing down on the roof. "No matter who they are, I won't let them touch anyone I love."
Xin chào các bạn, sau bài học sống có cuộc đời, Luna kiên cường ôm chặt Henry trong vòng tay. Phía sau sự thật mạnh mẽ ấy là một trái tim đầy tổn thương. Có lần Luna đã từ chối lời cầu hôn, tưởng rằng nhất định sẽ rời đi. Thế nhưng nay vẫn ở đó, Alex là em dang rộng vòng tay, rơi vào trong cô và thấy rằng từ chối bao nhiêu lần anh vẫn sẽ ở lại, xây dựng một mái ấm và cho Henry một hạnh phúc trọn vẹn. Và những tình yêu bình yên đủ sức xóa nhòa nỗi sợ hãi trong lòng Luna, Harry cũng sẽ một lần nữa bước từ hạnh phúc đang ở ngay trước mắt. Luna ngồi lặng, đôi tay siết chặt vạt áo như muốn tìm một điểm tựa cho trái tim vừa vừa. Cô khẽ thì thầm, giọng nhẹ lại: "Linh."